Hey, welcome back, everyone. Hey, Sune, how are you?
Hey.
How'd you like your homework assignment that I gave you?
Oh man, what a great idea you had and was fun to reminisce through a movie that I hadn't watched in quite a long time. So,
Yeah.
great idea
S-
and great fun
So,
assignment.
so yeah, to catch everyone up, we're gonna do something a little bit different today. This past Sunday was February 2nd, Groundhog Day. So, we're having a little bit of a lazy Sunday here at our house, and I was flipping channels and came across the movie Groundhog Day, which truth be told, I haven't seen probably in a few years, but um, I do remember being a huge fan of that movie when it first came out, and since then, actually, I discovered that I actually own it on when I went to watch it again on Amazon Prime. So I did buy it at some point. So that's how much I like that movie. But I'm a huge Bill Murray fan, and when I was flipping channels, there was one particular scene that came up, and it really reminded me of how much of a philosophical movie it is. So I thought it'd be a great subject for a podcast episode.
I certainly did not have the level of appreciation for its commentary on philosophy and meaning of life other than trying to be in the moment, like, very superficially. But, like, watching it now as I'm a little older, more mature, definitely had some really cool insights and commentary on what it means to live I'm sure we've all experienced the Groundhog Day effect for sure, where you just, like, every day seems like the same day, and it's like, "What am I doing? What's the what does it all mean?" And it definitely is a movie that I think as you go through different phases of life, you'll have different, interpretations of what it was representing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think and it was great. So I rewatched it since then. I watched it last night in full. And so yeah, I'd love to go through it. There's some great, kind of concepts in there. There are some great quotes that I want to go through. But yeah, let's jump in. The first let's start with the intro. So it's interesting that the music choice in the intro is kind of like a marching band music over clouds in the sky, kind of in fast motion. So I don't know what to make of that. I don't know if it's symbolism of any sort, or I don't know if you got anything from that.
I mean, my first impression when I saw it, and again, my bias is I love the movie Forrest Gump, and I'm sure if I watch Forrest
Mm.
Gump and now versus when I watched it when it first came out, I would have a different interpretation of it now. And that's where my head went was, is it, do you live in the world and, is the script pre-written, or are you the one that's influencing the script of the world unfolding in front of you? So that was where my head went. Not, I didn't see the feather floating around like we did in Forrest Gump. Like
Mm.
that was where my head went. As it relates to the music, moving pretty quickly by you, there could be a commentary about the speed with which life does move, and, if you're not stopping to pay attention, kinda like with Ferris Bueller's Day Off,
Yeah, yeah.
you might not appreciate
You
everything
might
that's
miss it.
happening,
Yeah,
so,
yeah,
yeah.
totally. What I like is it works on multiple levels, right? Where the clouds in the sky could just be a reference to the fact that the main character is a weatherman, and you could read deeper into it, right? And so I like it. There's a few moments, and we can kind of get we'll get to those, but there's a few kind of moments in the movie and themes that work on multiple levels, and that's what I really like about it because yeah, when we were younger, we probably didn't pick up on any of this other deeper stuff, deeper philosophical meaning and all that kind of stuff. But now we can, and it still works on a superficial level. And to hit that point even harder, we get like the intro scene of Phil. So the main character Phil Connor, Bill Murray, he's a weatherman, and you see him in his element, doing the weather report on TV. And then it kind of jumps in. The setup is there. He's going to Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania to cover the Groundhog Festival, right? And then it goes right into kind of like a intro scene, or I don't know what you would call it, like a montage of them driving to Punxsutawney, and it's very like upbeat '90s, comedy music. Like I looked it up. It's called a song called "Weatherman," which they wrote for the movie, which is co-written by Harold Ramis. And yeah, it's a very kind of like upbeat '90s comedy feel, and it has like it has the veneer of a '90s comedy, but as we see later, it goes a lot deeper than that.
I that I couldn't help but notice, the Phil Connor character is coming across as an elitist. He looked down
Mm.
upon the small town of Punxsutawney and this tradition, and almost poo-pooed it as if he was more enlightened and,
Yeah.
more, more, I don't know, I don't know, enlightened and more intelligent and more progressive than what this backward small town was going through. And, you kind of see that unfold as you see
Yeah.
him relive Groundhog Day over and over again. And he just couldn't wait to get out of the town, and
Yeah.
it's almost like, and it goes back, I'm sure you'll get to some of this too, but, it
Yeah.
goes back to, you don't know what you have until it's gone type of a mindset, and there's something that you do miss about the charm of the simplicity of a smaller town, if you will. And I don't think that, he got that when he first got there.
Yeah. So further to that point, I think they set this up in the van as they're on their way to the Punxsutawney. This whole Rita's character, which is played by Andy McDowell, and Phil are kind of set up as opposites, right? Like Phil is set up as very cynical about everything, and Rita is very optimistic, and she explains why she loves the festival, and maybe it's a little bit cheesy, but it's set up very much kind of as the opposite of where Phil is coming from. So I thought that was a very interesting dichotomy of cynicism versus optimism.
No question. And she comes across as more empathetic. Your natural reaction is, why does she even find Phil amusing? Like, he comes across as such an asshole. Like, why is she even tolerating him and laughing and, going along with him? He's condescending to her, and he talks down. Talks down to everyone, right? So, I agree. It was a nice balance, a nice contrast of, despite there being every reason for him to be unlikable, that she still finds him as somebody to be kind to.
Yeah.
And I thought that was, obviously by design, but interesting.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And speaking of which, so how perfect of an asshole is Bill Murray play? Like so perfect.
It's his character, right?
I mean, he already we already know he has the perfect comedic timing, but his character, like the way he plays an asshole is just so pitch perfect. Just chef's kiss.
Yes, no question, no question. It kind of is it's an interesting choice to make him a weatherman, because he doesn't naturally look like a weatherman. I just picture, like, really like male models as as
Yeah,
male weathermen.
yeah.
Like, he doesn't have that, like, I don't know, handsomeness. He's got the humor, but he doesn't have that, like, I don't know, like a mannequin, like a model
Yeah,
looking
yeah, like
type,
prototypical, like yeah.
which adds another element to the character related to a meteorologist. Like, what do you like? Why? Like, I was really curious about why they picked him as a meteorologist in the movie. I couldn't quite square out why that profession of all the other professions they could have picked to make their
Yeah,
points.
that's a great point. I wonder if there's some symbolism behind it that we just didn't get.
Yeah, maybe. Interesting. Next, when we do it again next year, we'll have to probe into that one a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, so they get to the town, right? Great scene outside the hotel with Rita and Phil and the driver. I can't remember the cameraman. I can't remember his name. But yeah, so great scene. Really sets up the whole Phil is such an asshole, but like a lovable asshole. Kind of. And then that kind of he goes to bed. The first loop starts, right? Like the first day or the first loop of the Groundhog Day starts. And I thought the whole morning radio show is such a great frame for that, right? Like where that's what starts the day, and it's such a great framework because you get the song, you get the morning radio show host, which I'm pretty sure one of those guys is Harold Ramis. I kind of tell from the voice, but I thought that was a great that sound coming through the alarm clock radio was a great framework for the rest of the movie.
Yeah, I agree. And it's a commentary also on how much the radio was a big part of life back in the 80s and 90s as well. It's people, we started our day listening to it, and I don't know. I felt like even the the whole hotel, like the bed and breakfast that he stayed at, and the kind of charm and personality of the people that he would run into, and the, like, just kindness of the innkeeper, and making sure that he was okay and he was happy, and all he could do was find it all annoying. Like, just
Mm,
leave me alone, I'm in a rush, like, I
right.
need to get to my thing, I just want to get this over with, I want to get out of this town. And you've
Yeah.
got somebody here who's just, like, not understanding. Like, it just shows the contrast of
Yeah.
personalities of somebody that's just this, like, alpha go-getter versus somebody that's just like, well, why don't you just, like, chill out and be happy and enjoy your life a little bit? Like, let me get you a cup of coffee. And he's just like, no, I don't have time for that, when he first starts off. So yeah, the radio show, like, just the kind, like, I don't know, it just it reminds you of the little simple things in life that you don't pay attention to if you're just rushing to your next destination and rushing to your thing and not enjoying the journey.
Yeah, so true, so true. And it comes into play later on too once he, um well, I don't give it away, but once he gets into the town and starts actually liking it, I think he starts understanding that charm.
No question about it.
Yeah, so he leaves the bed and breakfast in the morning for the first loop. He walks by a homeless man, which is kind of a throwaway at this point, but it'll come back into play later on. And at this point, he's just pretty much actually, he pretends that he's going to look for money, but he doesn't. He just walks right by him. So another, little check mark of the, and the asshole column. And then he runs into Ned Ryerson, which is someone he knew from high school. So I thought I think it's a great character, and Stephen Tobolowsky, who plays the character, he's a great actor. Great character actor who's been in a ton of stuff, but this character is so fantastic.
Definitely one of the best comedic characters in the whole movie, and the whole transformation of it being, I can't wait to get away from you, to the point that you're annoying me, and I'm sure you'll get punched in the face to then like giving him a kiss. Like the whole journey through Ned Ryerson, I feel like is so fascinating in the movie, both from a comedic standpoint, but as well as a symbolic standpoint. It just kind of exemplifies the whole journey that Phil goes through in the movie.
Yeah, for sure. So we kind of go quickly through this first loop in the movie. So he does his thing. He does the report um from Gobbler's Knob, where the Groundhog's going to come out, and they do the whole shtick. Um, and you get more taste, a little more taste of him being an asshole, all that stuff. It kind of they really drive home that point, and then they're on their way back. They're in the van, and the blizzard hits. The blizzard that he said wasn't going to hit does hit, and they come to a road closure, and the blizzard's coming down. There's a truck jackknifed on
Jackknife.
the road. They're closing down the roads. It's going to be a huge blizzard, and I thought this was the first moment that we really are hit with like a philosophical point, which is the cop. He's telling the cop, it's just a few flakes. It's not a big deal. Let us through. And then the cop says, "Now you can go back to Punxsutawney, or you can go ahead and freeze to death. It's your choice." So I think this goes to like determinism and free will. I thought it was a really interesting, a really good line that was delivered by that cop.
No question. It is one of those examples where, especially the personality that you see in Phil through this point in the movie, is somebody that is fully in charge and fully in control and defining what his destiny will be. And now you get smacked in the face with a bit of reality that what you're trying to achieve, what you're trying to do, it's basically impossible. And there's nothing you can do about it. The irony of it being based off of a prediction that he made that was incorrect, and accepting the fact that, hey, one, that you're flawed on your analysis of the weather patterns and what was going to happen with the weather. And then two, you're flawed in your belief that your life is fully in your control, like fully your ability to control the outcome. And he goes through this, like, I don't know, like kind of a catharsis in like right there. And he like, hops into the van and like kind of it seems unsettled and doesn't know what to do with himself. So it's always interesting in those moments in life. And we've all experienced in them, whether it's death or joy or happiness or sadness, where you just feel like, well, something was done upon you that you didn't want. And now it's up to you to react and choose what your next step is in the journey. And it was cool to see him go through that. And you have, one approach of what Phil does, and that's the perspective through this movie. And then I think as you'll see through the journey, you would wonder how Phil would, at the end of the movie, how Phil would respond to that situation versus the way that he did at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah, and it goes back to the whole thing of you have to stop worrying about the things that you can control, and focus on the things that you can. Right, like really, the storm is completely out of his control, and also the whole "it's your choice" thing really sets up the fact that the movie puts him in a position where he chose this, right? Like the whole loop, and living out this day for who knows for how long, that he chose it because it was set up as a choice in the beginning, which I thought was really great.
Totally agree. Yeah, no question.
So so they're stuck, right? Like he's stuck in this place. There's no way out, and he goes back, goes to sleep, and And here we go. This is where things get eerie for him, right? Like he wakes up and suddenly it's Groundhog Day again. And I think this is like, at first he thinks he's just going crazy. He goes through the same day again. He doesn't know what's going on. I thought Bill Murray plays it beautifully, in the second loop. And, it kind of goes through some of the same points of the day. And then you get to the end of the day again. And he's on the phone. I thought this is another great line. He's trying to talk. He's trying to talk. I can't remember what it was. He's talking to someone on the phone, trying to figure out how he's going to get out of there. And he's like, "Well, what if there's no tomorrow? There wasn't one today." That was a really good line too.
That's brilliant for sure. And I don't know, it begins um the point that they're trying to make, that sometimes life does feel like, the next day is just like the day before. And that's how you're on the hamster wheel, if you will,
Mm.
in a rut or whatever it might be. And kind of gets him. I mean, in fact, even in the scene, he goes to see a doctor because he thinks he's going insane, and the doctor runs like a brain scan and is like, "No, you're good. There's nothing wrong with you." So he's like, just trying to like figure out in a riddle, like, is this the same thing? Goes back to your earlier point. Is this something that's being done to him, or is it something that he's doing himself to himself?
Right.
And as you'll keep going and you kind of going through the movie, we learn why this was all set up this way, and what some of the insights were, that from a philosophical journey that the movie was trying to make.
Yeah. And I thought it was great. At the end of the second loop, as he's about to go to bed, he breaks a pencil and puts it on the nightstand. And I wonder, I should have looked this up, but broken pencil test. I think that's a great like metaphor for being stuck in a rut, like you just said, like you feel like you're stuck in a rut. I wonder if someone's used that in some academic paper or something. I thought that was a great kind of symbolism for being stuck in a rut.
Yeah, yeah, the broken pencil.
Mm.
Yeah,
So he breaks the pencil at the end of the second loop of the day, and he wakes up and the pencil's whole again. And this is when the first, I guess, the first stage of despair sets in. Like you could tell the third day he wakes up and he's just, what the hell is going on? And he starts rushing through the day. I noticed that, right? Like the third loop, like he's just trying to get through it because he doesn't know what the hell's going on. And that's, again, I think is symbolism for how we as humans can get into these ruts. Like we get into a rut, every day's the same. You kind of just start rushing through things. You don't enjoy or take time to appreciate everything around you, right? And we'll see later that he does. But I think we can all relate that, when you're stuck in a rut, you can just kind of feel like you're rushing through your day and just trying to get through it. And, it's not really any way to live.
I think that's further emphasized through one of the other actions that you see, Phil repeat over and over again in the first couple of loops. And after he sees Ned, he steps into a giant pothole that's essentially a big puddle because it's covered in snow and ice and sleet. And I think when you're just so focused on your destination and not monitoring or paying attention to the journey that you're on to your destination and enjoying the journey, you tend to repeat the same mistakes. It took him maybe the fourth loop or fifth loop before he realized, like, yep, there's a pothole there. Like, let me not
Yeah,
step into that.
that's a great
And
point.
it's very symbolic for me because it's so relatable. Like, I don't like, there is nothing more uncomfortable than having wet feet the whole day. Like,
Mm,
I would just like never forget that. Like, I hate that. That's so
yeah,
cringe to me to like have wet
yeah,
feet and walk around in it all day, especially in the cold and you're outside reporting. Like, it just was shocking to me how many loops it took for him to even realize, like, oh wait, there's a pothole there, let me not step in it, and then step over it. And it goes to the point that you were making for sure about, if you're not paying attention to everything that's going around you, you just repeat the same mistakes over and over again.
yeah, yeah. So true. Yeah. So yeah, third loop. This is the first time we get to the diner, which is where he starts to get to know some of the locals, right? Like he starts meeting some like the waitresses and the other people in town. I thought that was a great little scene, and we get a lot more of this. And then this is when he tells Rita what's going on, and Rita, like you mentioned before, they go to the doctor, right? And it's Harold Ramis, which was great. And if you don't know, Harold Ramis is the director of this movie, and a little bit bittersweet because he's since passed. I think Harold Ramis passed away like 10 years ago, but um, you know, Ramis and Bill Murray did a ton of great movies together. There was just fantastic chemistry. I mean, obviously, Ghostbusters, the big one, Stripes, a bunch of others that I can't think of right now. But they have such great chemistry, and apparently it was this movie that soured their relationship, and they kind of had to fall. Their relationship kind of fell apart, which is kind of sad because I think Bill Murray was looking for more of a straight up comedy, and Harold Ramis as the director. And apparently he was a practicing Buddhist, and that's where a lot of this philosophical stuff came from. He really wanted to go in this direction, which is what we see. And maybe they came to a kind of like a medium where it is a lot. It is in a lot of ways, like we said, on one level of comedy, but on another level, it's a lot of this deeper philosophical stuff. So maybe they came to a happy medium. Who knows what the behind the scenes stuff was, but it was a little sad that this is what caused their relationship to sour.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, some of the reports, and who knows what the truth is, put a lot of the blame on Bill Murray of like not showing up on time and just
Mm,
being like not listening to the direction that the director wanted to go in. And perhaps that's, rooted in disbelief or like a misalignment with what they wanted the movie to be, to your point of
mm,
a philosophical commentary with depth versus just a pure comedy. And I mean, as the audience member, I mean, they pulled it off brilliantly. Like
yeah.
you could interpret it on both levels. Like if you wanted to be like geeking out over the philosophy in the movie, like we are, absolutely you could. And if you had no interest in that level and just viewed it as a pure comedy, great.
It
Like
still
that's
works. Yeah.
it still
And that
totally
I think that's why I
was a
loved
great
it so
comedy.
much when I was younger, is that, it came out in 1993. So I was what, like 15, 16 years old, something like that. Right. And I think for me, it works like as a straight comedy, it worked beautifully. Right. And now as I got older, I realized all the other stuff in it. So yeah, like we said, it works on two levels.
Totally. And even as a kid, I had I think you and I, like we had some natural inclination of like, well, I wonder what they meant, but like you could we got some of the breadcrumbs or the Easter eggs that were planted in there, but they didn't fully hatch, I think, until we had a little bit more life experience to really appreciate them. Uh, but anyway, yeah, I mean, I think that's art. I mean, that's the
Yeah.
beauty of a really good piece of art, is that, different eyes in the, beauty's in the eye of the beholder. And, clearly as our eyes have changed over the years, we still continue to appreciate a movie like this. Just speaks volumes about how artistically beautiful a movie is.
Yeah, for sure. All right. So yeah, let's see. Yeah, we get Al Ramis and the doctor. He's a doctor in town. He sends him to a psychiatrist. He goes to a psychiatrist. He's like a newbie psychiatrist who just basically mainly deals with relationship issues and alcoholics. And now he's got this like crazy guy in front of him. And anyway, it was just a couple funny couple of scenes. And that night, Bill Murray ends up in a bowling alley, and he's interacting with a couple of locals that he originally saw at the diner. And there's a great scene where one of the locals is like holds up a beer glass that's half empty. He's like, you know, some say with this, it's like a classic, glass half empty, half full kind of thing. But it was another kind of flag placed by the filmmakers that hey, there's some deeper meaning here. So, optimism versus cynicism, and that was already set up before with Rita and Phil. So, I thought that was a cool little scene. And then Bill Murray to that says, "What would you do if you were stuck in one place and every day was exactly the same, and nothing you did mattered?" And he's talking about his situation, right, which is this crazy metaphysical situation where he's living the same day over and over again. But the guy, the one of the locals that he's sitting with, he's like, "Yep, that pretty much sums it up for me." And it goes back to everything we've been talking about is, you get stuck in ruts and every day feels the same. And so it really is a metaphor for these ruts that we can catch ourselves in.
And what a beautiful connection point between his experience of Groundhog Day and the folks at the bowling alley that he was drinking with view on their life every day. Like it doesn't matter whether you feel like you're an aspiring meteorologist or somebody that's just hanging out in your neighborhood and enjoying, a couple of beers, playing bowling, and going bowling. Like we all can get into this rut where every day feels the same.
Yeah.
And it was just a really cool way to connect the similarities between all of us and humanity, that we're all going through this journey, and, all of us take different paths, but inevitably the experiences that we go through are very, very relatable, more relatable than we think.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So they walk out of the bowling alley. They're all super smashed. They get into a car. Phil takes control. He's like, "You guys are way too drunk. I'm gonna drive." He's drunk too. They're driving, and he asks the question, "What if there were no tomorrow?" And the other guys are like, "There were no tomorrow. There'd be no consequences. You could do whatever you want." And this is like the first of many epiphanies, I guess you could say, that Phil has. And this first one, I don't know if you call it an epiphany. I guess it is. Epiphany can be good or bad, right? And this first one leads him towards the path of hedonism, right? Where he starts driving over mailboxes. He starts, crashing into things. He drives on railroad tracks. He's, you know, yeah, I mean, he pretty much freaking goes nuts because he realizes he can do whatever he wants and there's no consequences. And he says, "I'm not going to follow their rules anymore. You make choices and you live with them." So yeah, this leads us towards an interesting path. But yeah, it's a great setup for the next loop.
No question. And, I mean, just the fact that this guy was probably very risk averse when it comes to like as a law abiding citizen, and then he's getting chased by cops and not bothering to pull over and doubling down on trying to run away from them, like you said, on the train tracks. And shows, I guess, when you really believe that there are no consequences for your actions, or you're not afraid of the consequences of your actions the next day, and you truly try to live in the moment, it can become too hedonistic. And if you don't have the right guardrails of morality or ethics, and you just really just want to go nuts, like you can see how destructive humans can be without the fear or the risk or the appreciation of what the consequences can be of their action in the next day or the days after. And that was a really insightful piece to show the risks of not worrying about tomorrow.
Right. I mean, there's this, we have this thing of living in the moment, but I think that it can be too much of that, right? Like there has to be a balance of past, present, and future. And yeah, we want to be in the moment, but you also have to be thinking about the past and the future, right?
Yeah,
Otherwise,
there was,
this
I
is
forgot who
where you go.
Sorry, I forgot who
No,
the
no.
philosopher was that said, plan as if you will plan as if you're going to live forever, but live as if you're going to die today, or something
Yes.
like
Yeah.
that, right?
That's right. Something like
I'm
that. Yeah.
probably butchering it, but the idea is that you should plan that you're going to have to live forever, but that you have to live for today to the maximum.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. So true. Yeah. So, yeah, so now we're into loop 4. He gets arrested, gets put in jail, wakes up in bed and the bed and breakfast. And this loop 4, he's energized. He is on that hedonistic streak and he's energized, right? He jumps out of bed. He's like going to do whatever he's going to do. He ignores the homeless man even more. Actually, not even ignores. This time around, he lies. He straight up lies. Like, "I'll catch you tomorrow," which he knows is a lie because he's not going to catch him tomorrow, right? Like, so this hedonistic streak kind of caused him to be even more cruel to this homeless man than he was before by pretending not to have money or whatever. So just shows that, that there's a cruelty that comes from this hedonism as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
It's
then this
true.
is where he punches Ned in the face rather than having to deal with it.
By far one of the most memorable
so funny.
The way that they even crafted it and everything leading up to it, you can totally relate because you're like, dude, this guy is so goddamn annoying. Like you want to punch him for Bill Murray Phil Connor's in the scene, and it's great that it actually happened. So it's so funny. It's so funny.
Yeah, and then they end up in the diner again. He's telling Rita again that, he starts eating like a maniac, right? Like he eats whatever he wants.
Oh, yeah. Orders like the whole menu, basically, right?
Yeah,
He's got so much food.
And then let's see. And then he meets Nancy Taylor, who was a local woman, and essentially tricks her into having sex with him, which again, down this hedonistic streak, which obviously very questionable morally.
But enable. I had to sneeze there. Sorry. But enabled through the lack of consequences or belief that there's no consequences in the next day. Like if you're just going through this motion over and over again, like, screw it. Might as well enjoy it, right?
Yeah. And we're into loop 5 now with Nancy. He tricks Nancy into sex. And then after this, the loops get kind of hazy, kind of one after another. There's a lot of montages. There's, like the same scene over and over again. So now at this point, The first 4 or 5 loops are pretty clear. After that, we don't really know how long or how many days he's lived. They give little hints of months or years. I think some people have done breakdowns online that I read years ago, which posited that he lived hundreds of years or thousands of years in that one day, which is entirely possible because I mean he goes through a lot and he learns how to play the piano, he learns how to ice sculpt, so much stuff. So who knows how long he lived in that one day.
I think, and I don't know, maybe not to get ahead of it, but I can't help but think of this being a commentary even on modern day perspective. I think we didn't talk much about this yet, but the concept of hope and the importance of hope and the importance of what I do today is important for a better tomorrow. And I think that's a big part of hope. Like what's the point of being a good person, being moral, being ethical if tomorrow doesn't matter to me? Screw it. I'm just going to worry about myself and to hell with everyone else. And perhaps that is like at the heart of what hedonistic behavior is about or narcissistic behavior is truly about. And I think that type of an environment, and if you surround yourself with an echo chamber of other people that behave that way, I think can be destructive for society, as evidenced by in an extreme case in this movie. And it'll be really, I mean, I think as we go through this, it'll be really interesting to see what that glimmer of hope is, that this is not, although it seemed desirable and like he's having so much fun and you almost are jealous of him being able to do all these things and eat whatever he wants and have sex with whatever whoever he wants and go out drinking and drive drunk and all these rules that we see in society and societal norms that we've established. You see that he's able to break it, and they glorify it a bit at that moment, only to then really say like, well, make you think about, is that really the right way to live, and is that really going to be something you'll enjoy if that's what you have to do for every day of your life? And
Yeah.
if you kind of fast forward, which is what they did through that span of time like you're talking about, to where he ends up focusing his time every day on, you start realizing naturally he gravitates towards, well, developing skills and developing hobbies and finding ways in which you spend time in a more productive way as opposed to a hedonistic way.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. And we get a little bit of the whole, like you said, we kind of have fun. He kind of has fun with it, right? Like he's robbing armored cars. He buys a Mercedes. He's dressing up like Clint Eastwood to go see a movie. He tells his date that he's seen it 100 times already. So we're getting a little taste of everything that's happening. It seems like he's lived at least a few months in this way, and at least for that time, he's having fun with it. So, but yeah, like you said, it kind of comes back, and he finds that it's a very empty way to live life.
Yeah. Yeah, the meaning part, and that's and it's interesting, like what, and maybe I'll let you go and keep going with it. I don't want to like spoil the next couple of scenes, but it is interesting to talk through what finally, triggers him and breaks him from this purely hedonistic behavior, that he finally hits a point where this is so shallow and there has to be something
Yeah.
better than this. Like you get sick of being hedonistic at some point, and maybe not everybody reaches that, but obviously in this movie, the point was that it is supposed to be a commentary that this is not the right way to live.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think this is the next section leads us in that direction, right? So he clearly has an interest in Rita, right? And he starts showing more of an interest in getting to know her. But it's interesting because initially it's in a very superficial way, like memorizing her likes and dislikes, almost the way he tricks Nancy into sex. It's almost an extended version of that, but not as sinister, right? Where he's essentially learning her likes and dislikes. And if it's very superficial, it's very contrived. He's like trying to force it, right? And that's not what love is. It's more than just knowing specifics or details about a person's likes and dislikes. And she can feel it. She can feel that it's initially she likes it, but eventually she feels like it's superficial and it doesn't mean anything, that he's just trying to manipulate her.
Yeah, it's forced and not natural, and it's calculated, and that's also a two-way street in terms of when you like find a person that doesn't accept it, that doesn't buy it, that doesn't, that isn't going to go along with that and challenges you, there's a certain level of attraction with that, because then it forces you to think in ways. And I think it shows you the commentary of the difference between Rita and Nancy in the movie. And, you look at Nancy as somebody that wasn't really interested in anything serious deeper than, hedonistic behavior. And you look at Rita, and her perspective is very different. And that's not the type of person that she's looking for, at least at this stage in her life, that she wants some depth, she wants romance, and a little bit more intellectual connection than just superficial connection.
Right. And we go through a couple of loops like that where, initially she likes it, that they're getting along, but then when it doesn't work out, he starts forcing it. And, we go through a montage of her slapping him essentially over and over again. At the end of that, I think he starts realizing, or he starts hitting, we saw some despair after the first couple of loops. Now we start seeing true despair, where he's just, the color is out of, left his face. He starts becoming destructive, self-destructive. And he says to Rita, I've come to the end of me. There's no way out now. So really in full despair mode, and he starts becoming suicidal. So I kept a count, a suicide count, between all the ways they showed him killing himself and what he says later on. At least 10 different ways he's attempted to commit suicide. And every time he comes back.
That's well done to track the count. Why do you think he chose suicide as opposed to like why does that step occur as opposed to coming to the realization that, there's got to be a better way to live than just this like empty feeling that I'm getting from pleasuring myself all day? Why did you think that that's a stage in his journey? They didn't have to put that stage in.
No, they didn't. I think it's specific to his character, though. I think the way they set him up initially as a narcissist, as, super self-centered, cynical, I think he doesn't see any other path, because I don't think he either doesn't have the imagination for it, or he just doesn't have the character for it. So I think that has to be built, right? And I think that's why he goes down the path of hedonism and then despair and then becoming suicidal, because he doesn't see the other path. And I don't think he can until he gets that rock bottom. I mean, you see it in people in addiction, right? Where they have to hit that rock bottom before they can rise back up, right? They don't see the path from where they are to where they could be. They have to kind of go through the rock bottom before they can come back up.
Yeah. Yeah. It's almost like you almost, to your point, have to exhaust all of your known paths before you uncover a new path that you've never thought of before. And I guess like suicide, whether it's because it's exposure through, I don't know, whatever he's experienced in his life, that seems more practical than anything else, that you've really believed truly that you've tried everything else, right? Like, it's just not visible that being a good person is the way out of this, but he's like, it's so far removed from his thought process that suicide is more at present than like, oh yeah, maybe if I try enjoying the moment and being a good person, I'll get out of this. Like, I don't know, that's mind boggling to me.
Yeah. Well, actually, you know what? I'm glad you mentioned that, though, because I think they do kind of answer the question in the movie. I'm looking at my notes. So in the next loop, he's explaining to Rita, well, I think this might be where he starts like eating like crazy, or maybe it was after, I can't remember. But he says to her in the diner, I'm God. And she's like, oh, trust me, you're not God. This is 8 years of Catholic school talking or whatever. And he's like, I'm a God. I'm not the God. Which is a great line. I love it. Delivered perfectly. And then she says, how do I know this is not true? Like, he starts, telling her everything that's going to happen, like details about people's lives that he wouldn't otherwise know because he's only been in Punxsutawney for one day, right? And she's like, how do I know it's not a trick? And he's like, maybe the real God uses tricks. Maybe he's not omnipotent. Maybe he's been around so long that he just knows everything. So I thought that was interesting as well. And then that goes right into, he says specifically, I am a jerk to her, right? And I think this is the key. I think this is a key moment where the self-awareness comes in, right? And he goes from narcissistic to self-aware. And I think that this is what your question of why does he have to go down that path of hedonism and suicidal behavior is because he doesn't have self-awareness, because he's so narcissistic. And I think this moment where he recognizes that he's a jerk causes that self-awareness to come about, and that's when things kind of start turning around.
That's fascinating. Go from being so self-absorbed to even being self-critical is definitely a progression, from the way that he's been behaving. And it seems like a lot of these turning point moments and even these commentaries come with conversations with Rita, and it's hard not to
Mm,
position her as his hope,
right.
as a key person in his life, as a friend, really. And you and I talk so much about the importance of friends and community and people to talk to, and the movie definitely shows that this is not something that he would have been able to get out of without talking to Rita. I mean, she forces him to get more self-aware, as we go through the
Mhm.
movie, and as we kind of see him, finding other interests that bring him joy and fulfillment. He starts becoming more self-aware. But you're right, the first indication that he's moving towards self-awareness is labeling himself a jerk.
Yeah. And not only is Rita a friend, but I think she's the moral center of the movie, but even more than that, I think she becomes his moral center, right? And that's why he realigns himself to that moral center that she brings, and I think that's where things really start changing for him.
And yeah, what a great point. And why, then it becomes like, why does her moral center become his moral center? And how long and difficult of a journey it was for him to go through before he accepts her moral center as, yeah, maybe you have a point. And I think a huge part of it is Rita never had an agenda. It was
Mm,
just genuine with who she was. She never changed. Her character never changed in all the loops. You could have gone through every single loop and you would have been like, well, yeah, she's always just been the same character. He's just leveraging her and interacting with her in a different way as he gets more and more self-aware. And she serves, to your point, of like helping him to see the path to more fulfillment through being a more moral person.
yeah, yeah, and I think this really is the turning point, right? He's still in the loop, but he finally genuinely connects with Rita by being honest and genuine himself, and aligning himself with how she is, right? She's always honest and genuine. And that's the first time that we kind of see a glimmer of hope from him. And, to drive it further that this is the turning point, this is when he decides to finally start living, right? And this is the first time after this point is when he start helps the homeless man. He gives him some money, and we get into see some loops where he's trying to help the homeless man, right? And he starts some real self improvement for no other reason than it's the right thing to do, right? He starts reading. You see him start reading. You see him start learning how to play the piano, just being kind in general to everyone around him, right? And he learns how to ice sculpt. Compare it to before, even when he connects with Rita in a disingenuous way, right? Where he's just well, all he's learned to do is do a card trick where he throws cards into a hat, which is idleness, right? Like that's doesn't really serve a purpose. So it goes to show he's progressed from that, learning how to throw cards into a hat, and now he's learning how to become a better person. And it really shows that progression of his character.
Yeah, and again, like going back to the whole Rita point, I mean, as he's going through this journey, you know, he realizes that his approach with Rita to be manipulative never worked. And that's the other sign of why Rita serves as the moral compass, is because she knows who she is. She's not trying to transform and change and isn't stuck in a rut that she has this, like, I mean, we all have a little bit of this, like, kind of whatever, imposter syndrome and all that, but at least in the movie, Rita represents herself as being like her true authentic self. And Phil is, I think, realizing that as he's done these like sort of tricks and manipulations to try to win her over, that is not the right way to do it, that he has to find himself if he wants to be able to truly figure out if Rita's the right one for him. And I think that's when the relationship between both of them, to your point, like starts to change, is when he starts being more genuine, more kind, and more aware of who he is as a person, and doesn't try to manipulate her, just tries to like say,
Right.
hey, be curious, like if I behave this way and this is who I am, and I'm not trying to do anything or have an ulterior motive to try to sleep with you or anything, but like just, can we be two people that go through life together, and these are all the cool things that we would do together, and it's not just purely hedonistic that I want to spend this time with you. You start seeing him start showing signs of how he's going to get out of this rut.
Yeah, so true. And to go back to the homeless man, now he becomes determined to save the homeless man, right? We see him take him to somewhere to eat, feeds him food. We see him giving him CPR in an alley. Like, he is determined to save him. And, he takes him into, I think one of the first ones where he's trying to save him, he takes him into the hospital, he dies, and he's just like, why, right? Like, I fed him, why did he die? And the nurse or the doctor just says, sometimes people just die, that they're just old, so, but that's not good enough for him. And it really shows to how far his character has come. And one interesting point I found was kind of odd is that he keeps calling him different versions of father. He calls him father, he calls him dad, he calls him pop in different loops. And I wonder if this is symbolism for something. Now we know that Harold Ramis was a practicing Buddhist, but I wonder if this is some kind of symbolism for God. I don't know. It just seemed odd to me that he would call him that, different versions of father.
I mean, in some ways, it could just be the channeling of the father son relationship of, you don't really understand the lessons that somebody that on the side of the street is teaching you. In fact, they may look like they're not teaching you a single lesson. You're just going through life. They're there. You go by them. You don't even realize it. And then once you start paying attention to them and their story and their journey, you start realizing there's a ton of lessons that they've been teaching you or have been teaching or have taught you. And you don't even realize it until you pay attention to it. And I think a lot of us as sons, if we've depending on the relationships with our fathers, like, I know I have had those moments in my own life as I've realized, like, well, that's what my dad meant. Or, like, this is the
Yeah.
way that my dad lived his life. And these were some of the morals that he ascribed to his view of the world. And, he wasn't at least, personally speaking, like a capitalistic shark. Like, he was more about, well, this is this is my view of the right way to do things. Like, this is what his moral compass was. And it's an interesting commentary of, like, I never really analyzed or thought about my dad's moral compass until later in life. And, maybe as Phil is going through this journey, he sees that, this person that's just lying there, looks like a homeless person, is a nobody. But then as he gets to know that person, there's just a lot that they do have to offer and a lot that they influence and shape his life to ultimately eventually get him out of the loop.
Yeah, no, it's a great perspective. And there's another great moment where after trying to give him CPR and he dies, you see him look up at the sky just for a second or two, and then the camera cuts. But, it's just either he's looking up at God or the universe or whatever it is. And it's just a nice little acknowledgement that he's like, yeah, what the fuck? I'm trying to save this guy.
Yeah, right. Right. I mean, and you're just looking up for answers, right?
Yeah,
Like, we
yeah,
look up and it's like, it's like, what the fuck? Right. Exactly. There's no explanation here. Like, really?
right, right.
Like,
Yeah,
are you not satisfied yet? Are you not happy
right.
yet? Like,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
doing everything right. And it's, man, it's such a tough journey when you try to live by what you think is a good moral code, because there are times where you question even your morality and ethics, because you're like, I'm doing good. I'm doing what I believe is the right thing. Yet, what if these bad things still happen?
Mm,
And it makes you question whether, well then, screw it all. Like, fuck it. Like, I'm just going to be hedonistic and just go back to my path. Like, it's not worth it if bad things are going to happen anyway. And I guess that's what we all go through life with, and we waver and go one way and go the other way, and try to find our own path. And there is no perfect path. That's the truth of it. But you got to find what works for you. And I don't know. I feel like
yeah.
that was the way that I would interpret that.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's a great one of many great moments in this movie, but it was such
So
a great,
many.
like, there's
Yeah,
literally 2 seconds where he looks up at the sky, but it's so impactful,
totally. I didn't even notice it.
So anyway, so yeah, so now we see him in the loop still, but he's filling his days by helping people, right? Literally he has a daily routine. He saves a boy falling from a tree. He changes some old lady's flat tire. He does the Heimlich maneuver on a choking victim in a restaurant. He saves a newlywed's. He's in the community. Everyone knows him. He becomes part of the community. And, we're going to hammer this point because we keep talking about it, but how important is it that, for fulfillment to really feel fulfilled, to be involved with the people around you, to be involved with the community, whatever that community is. But he becomes part of this town and he fills his days by helping people.
Yeah, it's not a coincidence. It is a direct commentary on what brings joy and fulfillment, or at least a message that the movie's trying to convey. And I think you and I certainly share that belief that joy and fulfillment does come from helping our communities. And the movie echoes that very loud and clear as well. And that's certainly another critical step in his getting out of his rut, is the connection that he's made, the effort that he's put forth to build and connect with the community.
Yeah, and you could argue that this is when he finds his purpose, and this is the beginning of the end of the loops, because he was able to find his purpose by becoming part of the community.
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree. And it aligns very nicely with all of our themes. And it is a cautionary tale on loneliness as well. And, you do start the movie with this feeling of it's me against the world, and he's trying to take over the world. And, you don't see him with friends, and you don't see him respecting his coworkers and really caring about anybody but himself. He comes across as very much a narcissist in the beginning. And the journey to where he ends up in Punxsutawney, through connecting and supporting neighbors and spending energy to help others. It's a very interesting take on the impact of loneliness, narcissism versus a community member with some humility and focus on others.
Yeah, absolutely. And then with that, we kind of, spoiler alert, come to the final loop. And we see that he finally makes that true, real connection with Rita. And, we'll call it what you want, right? Real love. I feel like true love is a very loaded term in pop culture, especially, but it feels like a real, true connection where he's not trying to manipulate her. He really does know her, and you see he carves her face out of ice, right? And they have this great moment together. And then he says, no matter what happens tomorrow or for the rest of my life, I'm happy now because I love you. And, it goes to the whole living in the moment and being happy in the moment, and what that can get you, the sense of fulfillment with everything else, with being a member of a community, with, having people around you, and, finding your purpose, and that living in the moment. And this is what true fulfillment looked like.
And the importance of him getting perspective from all of the different people that he interacted with within the community certainly impacts and shapes what is important to him and how he can get to his true self and what it means to be his true self. And so while it may look like the community benefited from him, more so it seems that the community helped him to get to a point where he was able to achieve self-awareness and genuineness to the point that it was attractive to Rita, and they were able to get their deep connection. And well, really at the end of the day, I mean, I don't know. For me, that there's nothing more important that I feel more grounded with than having a partner to go through life with. Having my wife by my side is a rock. And I think it shows even people that, subscribe to that belief or hold that and have found that can relate to that. And I certainly did. I don't know. I think it's like, along with that, the connection of love and all of that, and the importance of community, to me, it just shows the importance of having hope, of wanting to, continuously focus on self-improvement, continuing to discover yourself. You're never done, but that the more you progress and know that you're on the right track, you really get to feel things inside your body, like physically, that I think show that you're on the right track.
Yeah, so true. And I think this is the realization that you can say, God, the universe, whatever was pushing him towards, right? Like this realization that of what life really is about. And just like that, the cycle is broken.
Yeah. 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 It's crazy, right? and then you're and then you're back out, and I don't know. And the really interesting part, like the age, like you don't see him age during this whole journey, right? And then
Yeah,
he goes back out into the real world, and this was all like one day in
right.
in real life versus all of the experiences. And sometimes probably we all feel this way, that we've lived like 10 years of life in our head, especially when we
Mm,
think about meaning and purpose and philosophize and look back on all the experiences and the journey that we've been on in our life. And then we get to our present day. I can certainly relate to having days where you just spend too much time in your head,
yeah,
and then ultimately you get out, and you have this sense of appreciation of everything that you have around you. And I don't know, to me, wanting to focus on enjoying the journey continues to be a challenge. And I think we all like can take a lesson away to make sure we do appreciate all the little things that we experience every single day on a journey that we go through every single day that we don't pay attention to. And I know as I've, you know, matured and gotten older, smelling fresh air, looking up at the sky, looking at
mm,
the beauty of the blues, looking at the green trees when they're green, and looking at snow-covered ground when there's snow, and just finding beauty and joy in everything I see around me has become an intentional task. Like we lose that we have that amazement and wonder as children when we're focused so much on whatever it is that we're doing, when we're either climbing up a mountain or, trying to make money, or trying to find, purpose or meaning or fulfillment in whatever, way we think it's that we're going to achieve it, that it is so important to enjoy the journey. And, I continue to try to do that.
yeah. No, so true. It's a great reminder, right? And there's a great line he has there at the end. When he wakes up, he realizes the cycle is broken. And it's a great bookend. We had the line in the second loop where he says, "Well, what if there was no tomorrow? There wasn't one today." And he ends the movie with, "Today is tomorrow. It happened. You're here, to Rita." And there's such a great bookend to that first line, to this line. And yeah, and they walk out together, and they're gonna enjoy the day. And it's such a perfect ending song. Almost like Being in Love by Nat King Cole. Just perfect, perfect, perfect way to end the movie. And I actually have in my notes in all capital letters, great fucking movie. Because it is. And if you haven't seen it, please go watch it because it's such a great, great, great movie.
Dude, that was awesome. You did such a great job with the notes and guiding us through that. Thanks, man. That was a lot of fun. I appreciate
Yeah,
you teeing this up, the idea, and then the
yeah.
analysis. That was awesome, bro. Great work.
No, it was a fun one. I think this is we talked about maybe making this a recurring thing where we take different movies or anything, a TV show or anything that kind of has philosophical leanings or references and kind of put take giving our perspective on it. I think it could be fun.
Listen, we're not, as we've said in the onset, we're not PhD philosophers. Like that's just not us. But we're trying to make sense of the world around us, and in a way that a couple of guys going through it, drinking beer and pizza, and try to figure this out. So yeah, man, that was awesome. That was a lot of fun. Thanks for
Yeah, it
teeing
was a
that up.
fun one. Yeah, man. Yeah, absolutely. All right.
All
Well,
right,
I think that's a pod.
it's the
Thanks for
pod,
joining
man.
us. Until next time.
Cheers.
Cheers.